You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It is season number 4. It is episode number 2. Crawly, we are right around the corner from Cubs Cahn. This time next week, you will have a heart rate like no other because your Super Bowl is right around the corner. Don't forget to listen to us, download, review, most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow on all the socials, Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram. Of course, we're on Facebook. You can email us at flythew670@gmail.com. All right, Crawly, let's get to a little bit of the MLB hot stove to get things going. And one of the names that we had talked about a little bit, I don't think either one of us were really that interested in, but maybe 10 years ago, but Justin Verlander has inked a deal with the Giants on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, Dustin, it's been kind of a quiet week, just waiting for things to happen. But Justin Verlander continues with the orange uniform trend. 1 year, $15 million deal with the Giants. He's 42 years old, Dustin. And when I was taking a look at this, he only needs 38 wins to reach 300. Now, I think you and I can both agree that Verlander's a Hall of Famer, right? I mean, that's no doubt about that, right?
No doubt about it.
But that number, that 300 is that magic number. And we wonder, just because they don't let guys go 3 times through the order anymore and all this stuff, how many players are going to do that? 38 wins. He's 42 years old. I'm just wondering, I mean, to me, that's kind of like a little side story to this, that I'm just curious if he could hit that number. I mean, what do you think? 10, 12 wins a season, he'd still have to play 3-4 more years.
Yeah, I don't think he's got that. I don't think he's got that left. I don't think he's got it left. I don't think teams will be interested. I don't see it happening.
Yeah. So, I mean, not a bad deal for the Giants. He's a good guy to have on the team. Michael Lorenzen.
Yeah, but I'm not going to, 3 months from now, Crawly, I'm not going to be banging on the Cubs for not signing this guy to a 1-year, $15 million deal.
No, and the same thing, Max Scherzer's still on the market. 2 guys that are definitely past their prime.
And he's still getting paid by how many different teams at the same time? right? I mean, I'm just saying, come on.
I think more than anything, when you take a look at it, you have to ask yourself, where do you think you are, right? So if you remember, the Cubs got John Lackey in 2016. He wasn't the John Lackey of the Angels. He wasn't the John Lackey of the Red Sox, but he still had enough to give the Cubs innings and playoff experience and those kind of things. So if you're a team that's really feeling like, hey, I think we got a really good run in us, it's not the worst deal in the world, in my opinion. It's just, I just don't know if the Cubs are at that point yet.
Right.
Michael Lorenzen, who came to the Royals in a trade last season, will be returning to KC. He signed a 1-year deal for $7 million with an option for 2026, and he can make up to $2.5 million in bonuses. The Nationals signed infielder Ahmad Rosario to a 1-year deal. So you see a lot of 1-year deals, Verlander, Lorenzen, Rosario, but the A's extended Brent Rooker, giving him $60 million over 5 years. Dustin, he's a guy that I really was like, maybe the Cubs, possibly, who knows? But nope, the A's are locking him up, and good on the A's to actually spend some money. Well,
yeah, they're spending a little bit, right? Mm-hmm.
A little bit shocking, but he's a young kid, and that's not horrible money. You know what I mean? You talk 5 years, $12 million. Mm-hmm. He's, guy that has 40 home run pop in him. So not a bad deal at all. We also had a trade. The Dodgers, we were talking about that when they signed the Korean player on the last episode, but they had to get rid of some of these guys. And so Gavin Lux comes to the Reds. So Gavin Lux in the NL Central, and the Dodgers get outfielder Mike Sirota and a competitive balance round A pick. So those are kind of some of the moves that we've seen, but not again, that reliever market is still not moving. So hopefully,
what do you think's holding that up?
I think it's I think when you take a look at this, when you have one big guy that's going to set the market, to me, that's the one that's what you kind of take a look at here. So I think that Tanner Scott's kind of the best of the relievers. And so once he signs, the rest will all fall like dominoes. That's my opinion.
All right. So he's kind of he's the lead guy, huh?
Right. And we saw with first baseman too, one guy goes and then boom, 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 boom. Everyone just kind of, it sets the market, and then everyone starts to kind of like a game of musical chairs. You don't want to be left without a chair. So everyone's going to start, paying, even if they have to overpay what that player may potentially be worth. That's why a guy like Tanner Scott that can set the market, that's all the other guys that are kind of waiting in the wings are happy and looking to see what he gets. Now, with this lull going on, Dustin, with kind of nothing going on here in the offseason, a lot of baseball shows and podcasts are putting all sorts of lists out for engagement.
Lists.
Yes. And MLB Network, I don't know what their deal is. I don't think they like Pete Crow-Armstrong. I really feel like
their deal is.
I feel like they keep snubbing the guy. And so they made a list of top 10 center fielders in the game. And guess who did not make the list? PCA.
Well, PCA, based on
yeah,
what you
no?
just said.
And so I'm sitting here taking a look here, and I don't get it. I just don't get it. You know, Luis Robert Jr., 10. O'Neal Cruz, he's not even really a center fielder, right? I mean, I know they put him there, but he can't play the position. Garrett Mitchell, I think, is good. Dalton Varsho, Brandon Marsh, Mike Trout. We all know he's a great player, but the Angels aren't going to put him in center field next year. They say they're going to put him in a corner spot. Right?
If he happens to not have another ouchie.
Right. Michael Harris, Byron Buxton.
I'm glad he was able to go. I'm glad he was able to go to a football game, though. I saw him cheering at an Eagles game. I think he's a big Philly fan. So
you got Jackson Merrill at 2. I don't have a problem with Julio Rodriguez, but if you're telling me, and I don't know exactly what the criteria was, but you can't make a list of top 10 center fielders. Now, I don't know how much they weighed the defense versus the offense. To me, PCA is easily a top 3 defender. And if he puts up numbers offensively like he did in the second half, you got a really valuable player. But just on defense alone, he gives you a lot of value. I don't see how he doesn't make the list, Dustin. And it doesn't stop there with MLB Network, because they had a list of top 25 rookies. And guess what? No PCA to be found in that one either. And so I'm looking here at this list, and yeah, there's a really strong class. When you take a look at Cubs, Michael Busch is on the list at number 17. And then you got, Cade Smith at number 10, Mason Wynn from the Cardinals, 9, Yamamoto, 8, Mason Miller, 7, Colton Cowser, 6. A guy that we kind of laughed about, we've talked about this, I think we're in agreement. Shodi Minaga came in at number 4 on the list. So 2 Cubs on the list, Busch at 17, and Imanaga at number 4, even though Imanaga, like I said, we've both agreed, not really a rookie. But I can't believe that Pete Crow-Armstrong isn't even in the top 20. That's 2 lists from MLB Network.
Yeah, that's confusing. The second one is even more confusing than the first.
I don't. To me, they're both egregious, man. Like,
right. Well, I'm just saying. The second one almost bothers me more than the first. That's all I'm saying.
For me, I went to see Pete when he was in South Bend. And when they're just warming up, when they're just playing around, you should see what this guy was doing. Like, just literally catching the ball behind his head. Like, he has hand-eye coordination like you just wouldn't believe. You remember in Kyle Tucker's press conference, him bringing up seeing highlights of PCA. To me, to say you're not a top 10 defense, and he wasn't even a finalist for the Gold Glove Award either, which you guys remember I was really upset about too. So right. I hope that Pete Crow-Armstrong has a little file somewhere, that a little folder on his laptop or whatever. That he's
keeping receipts, Crawly. You want him keeping receipts?
Keep receipts, because when he has that Gold Glove Award, I hope he goes on MLB Network and says, "Hey, you know what? I wasn't a top 10 center fielder. Now I'm a Gold Glover. How about that?"
Because use it as motivation, huh?
Use it as motivation, but I don't look again. I didn't know the criteria of the top 10 specifically, like how much they weigh defense to offense. But you can't tell me he's not a top 10 defender and top 25 rookies. Come on. So go ahead and use it. Speaking of rookies, Dustin, Jonathan Mayo wrote an article for MLB.com the other day, and they do this every year. They poll MLB executives to think, who do they see as most likely to win the Rookie of the Year in each league, AL, NL. So they ask everybody, front office officials, GMs, members of scouting, player developments, analytics from all 30 organizations, right? Now, in 2023, they knocked it out of the park. They got both of them right. Corbin Carroll of the Diamondbacks and Gunnar Henderson of the Orioles, who they predicted in 2023. They were right. They were not right in 2024. They thought Yamamoto and Evan Carter were going to win it. They did get some votes, but they did not win the awards this year. But they do have their predictions for 2025. Now, when you take a look at AL Rookie of the Year, you can see it's pretty close here. You got a couple guys at 19 from Roman Anthony, outfielder from Boston, and Jackson Jobe from a right-handed pitcher from Detroit, and at 19%. And then Jackson Dominguez, he's outfielder from the Yankees at 17%. And so you see there's some closeness. But when we go to the NL Rookie of the Year, 50% think Dylan Cruz, outfielder from the Nationals, is going to be the Rookie of the Year. Now, he has a couple games under his belt. He does have some major league experience. He's called up this year in 2024. But at number 2, 18%, so it's a big drop-off from Cruz. Matt Shaw is the prediction for the NL Rookie of the Year. So, it's good to see that, at least Matt Shaw is getting a little bit of love, a little bit of credit there because, the Cubs really need him. I hate to feel that way, to put that on a kid like Matt Shaw, but I think a lot about when you think about 1989, you had 2 guys for the Cubs that just kind of shocked everybody, in Jerome Walton and Dwight Smith. You remember that Rookie of the Year, and Dwight Smith was the runner-up. And when you have those type of seasons from guys, it really makes a difference. In 2015, Chris Bryant, Rookie of the Year, helped propel the Cubs all the way to the NLCS. And so it's hard. It doesn't happen often, but boy, oh boy, if they could get a Rookie of the Year season from Matt Shaw. But again, you just don't want to put that on a young player like that. So
they may not have to, Crawly, right? There's a rumor out there. They may not have to do that because there is a former Chicago baseball player who played third base, who had a big career ahead of him. Didn't work out so well that somebody on the Northside might be interested in. Do tell.
Yeah, according to Francis Romero, and if you're following him on X, Twitter, whatever, he's really got good connections with the Latino ball players. He's saying that the Blue Jays, Seattle Mariners, and your Chicago Cubs are among the teams interested in former White Sox third baseman Yoan Moncada. Dustin, I was talking earlier about relievers and dominoes falling. Obviously, everyone wants to know what's going to happen with Alec Bregman. But once a team decides to go in on Bregman, whether it's Houston, whether it's Toronto, whether it's whoever, then it looks for a lot of people like Yoan Moncada might be a plan B, right?
Why not? Why not? Why not take a flyer, right?
Right. He could be one of those guys, needs a change of pace. Maybe he needs a little bit of humble pie. I'll always remember that, when you talked about just guys moving locations, it can make Josh Hamilton. If you remember him going to the Texas Rangers and getting it just was the right fit. Sometimes it just happens and it clicks for players. So, I mean, with Yoan Moncada, he was a blue chip prospect. Like you said, basically a can't miss guy. But like you talked about with Mike Trout, injuries, a lot of injuries, and just never has really fulfilled what people thought. So to me, the thing about Moncada is that he really doesn't do much besides play third base.
Well, could play. I think he could play second.
I think
he could play second. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying he could play it well, but I think he could play second.
I think he could play it, but I think the Cubs would prefer a better somebody that has more versatility. I mean, I think he could play probably a slightly below average second base, but I think the Cubs are probably looking for a little bit more than that. So never made it with the White Sox, but maybe with the Cubs. Wouldn't that be great? With
I'd be willing to take a flyer on it. It'd be a decent insurance for Shaw.
Yeah, I'd give it a shot. But that's, again, remember we had this with Trey Mancini. We were all excited. Hey, if it doesn't work out with Mervis, you got to, and it, most of the time
it didn't work out in any direction. And maybe they have found the replacement for Anthony Rizzo finally, but I'm still saying it's a maybe.
Right. I would say that, I think there's other guys. Ha-Sung Kim is a guy he played with the Padres last year who can play third, second, and short. He's still out there. I'd be more interested in that than, say, a guy like Yoan Moncada. But, hey, you know what? Maybe it does happen. Maybe you can resurrect his career. And then you can still have maybe Matt Shaw playing second until Nico's ready. I mean, there's a lot you can do. But definitely I feel like there's a need to get a better third base backup, a backup third baseman right now, and Moncada might fit the bill.
So, friend of the pod and teammate over at the Score, Pat Hughes, won an award that They might end up naming after him at some point.
They might as well, right? He has won the Illinois Broadcaster of the Year for the 10th time.
10 times, Crawly. 10
times.
I knew he had won it, but I didn't realize it was 10 times. Wow.
Right. And not only that, he's won, it's the 13th time in his career he's won a state sportscaster of the year. He won it 3 times in Wisconsin when he was doing play-by-play for the Brewers.
Yeah, and it's crazy. He's celebrating his 30th year, right?
Yes.
30th year as the voice of the Cubs.
Yes. And
that's crazy.
Last time he won the award was 2018. So great to see for Pat. Someone like, both you and I have gotten to know over the years, and just a great guy. And the awards keep coming, whether we talk about Ford Frick, whether we talk about the Illinois sports broadcaster, whether we talk about the Arizona League Hall of Fame, Cubs Hall of Fame. I mean, the guy is just a legend, and we're blessed to have him calling those games.
Yes, we are. And Crawly, I think that's a great way to put it, because sometimes, we don't realize, unless you head out of market, or unless you're a really diehard baseball fan and you're checking out other teams' radio and TV play-by-play voices, we are very, very lucky as Cub fans to have who we have calling our favorite team on both radio and television.
Absolutely. It's a blast. And so good on him. Some sad news, Dustin, in the world of baseball. Major League Baseball announced that former big leaguer Brian Matus passed away on Tuesday night. And you may be trying to say, like, hey, that name sounds familiar. Brian Matus, where do I know that from? And it's kind of an interesting story as it plays out. He played mainly for the Orioles most of his career, but he played a small role in an unforgettable game for the 2016 Cubs. If you remember, the Cubs kind of shot out of a cannon, right, in 2016, red hot start. But in July, the starters begin to look gassed. And Dustin, we've seen it as Cub fans a bajillion times. The dog days of summer come, and the Cubs just kind of start running out of gas. The team was 11-14 in the month of July. That was the only sub 500 month of that season. And so Joe Maddon decided to rest his starters, to push everybody back a day. And so the Cubs called on Brian Matus. He was let go from the Orioles. He was traded from the Orioles to the Braves. The Braves let him go. The Cubs picked him up. So he's on his 3rd team in the month, and it didn't go well for him. And he gave up 2 home runs in the first, 2 home runs in the second, and 2 home runs in the third. So the Cubs,
that's not a good start. Yeah.
No, Cubs are trailing Felix Hernandez and the Mariners 6-0. But the Cubs scored 2 in the 5th, 1 in the 6th, and 3 in the 9th to tie the game up at Wrigley. Wrigley is rocking. It was one of those games where Madden's doing all his magic and just weird things are happening. That was one where Travis Wood made a phenomenal play in left field when, he's doing Madden's doing those kinds of things. And so the game remains tied until the 12th inning, when Jason Hayward, of all people, led off with a double and moved to 3rd on a flyout. Now, the pitcher spot is up, and the Cubs have no more position players left. And so Madden calls on, of all people, Dustin, of all people, he calls on John Lester to take the at-bat. John Lester, who got off to the worst hitting start of any player in baseball history. It's a 2-2 count, and Madden calls for the safety squeeze with 1 out. Lester lays down the bunt. Hayward beautifully base runs this. He beats the throw home. Wrigley goes nuts. The players rip off Lester's jersey, and that's one where they're throwing rosin at him. They're throwing water on him, and it was one of the signature wins of an amazing season. And so people kind of jokingly called that one the Brian Matus game, because he was the starter of that one. It was the only game he was going to play for the Cubs. He's let go after that. But my friend Tommy Skinner, he texted me with this information yesterday, and he texted me and he said, Crawly, he's the first of the 45 guys that played at least one game for the Cubs in 2016 to pass away. And so there's a lot of collectors, myself among them, but people collect different Cubs memorabilia, and I know guys, I'm not one of them, that want to collect those gold World Series baseballs from every player that played any inning on the Cubs. They have the umpires from each of the World Series games. They have the play-by-play guys. They have everything. And so, in the collecting community, Brian Matus passing away, Obviously affected a lot of people, but more than anything, Dustin, our hearts go out to his family and especially the Oriole fan base, who was, he was a beloved figure over in Baltimore with this loss.
Yeah. Good story, Crawly. And yes, everybody's feeling for their family, and our thoughts are definitely with them. This is the Fly the W670 podcast. It is season number 4, episode number 2. Is relief, Crawly? Is it on the way? Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Of course, you can leave us one of those 5-star reviews. In this segment, Crawly's talking to Michael Cerami about his recent article on relief pitcher free agent market and what the Cubs should be looking to add in that particular position.
Joining me now on the Fly the W podcast, I am glad to have on our old friend Michael Cerami. Michael of Bleacher Nation, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good to be here. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, I had to get you on. I'll tell you why. I was sitting there, and as always, I'm going to Bleacher Nation to get my Cubs news. And you wrote an article that has been just like eating away at me about relief pitchers. And, just sitting there and I guess I'm just I think probably a lot of Cub fans right now are feeling frustrated. It's like, we keep calling it the Bellinger bucks, right? You got this $20 million to play with, and it's like, just set the market, do something. I mean, we watched the Cubs piss away the last 2 seasons basically because of a bullpen.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I like I wrote in the article, I do think this year is going to be a little bit different in that respect. The Cubs have historically, and probably not incorrectly, results notwithstanding, sort of bought into this belief that they can build a bullpen, right? Just as effectively as you can buy one. And in a lot of ways, they're not wrong, because by the end of each of the last 2 seasons, or at least I guess for the middle of the season through August for 2023 and the end of the year last year, they actually did build a bullpen that was pretty solid, and it worked. It's just that in 2023, they ran out of gas because they over-relied on too few guys. Then last year, it just took them too long to not only figure out the right makeup of the bullpen in terms of personnel, but the right usage of those guys within that group of players. And so that, came back and bit them in the butt. And both years, I don't know if the bullpen is exactly why it caused them to miss the playoffs last year, but it certainly did in 2023. And it was a big, big problem in 2024, especially because of the, added value that's not captured in WAR, let's say, of a closer blowing game. We lost a lot of games because of Albert Alzolay, whom I love, a good guy and was a great player going into the season. And Hector Neris, it just did not work out at all. And there's a big difference between those guys, having maybe an ERA that doesn't look as bad until you dig in. It's like, oh, all of that happened in the 9th inning with a 1-run lead. And the Cubs offense wasn't strong enough to get, to put them in positions where there was even the tiniest room for error. And they lost a bunch of games. But all that said, I think this year is going to be different. I think they're going to build a different bullpen. They're going to build their bullpen a slightly different way. And I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic about that.
Well, we've been watching the free agent market, and if it's one area where it has not been moving pretty much at all, it's with the relief pitchers. I mean, are they just waiting for is everyone just waiting for Tanner Scott to kind of set the market?
Yeah, so I think that's definitely how I'm reading it. So let's think about this a couple ways. First of all, the Cubs did trade for Eli Morgan, who I think is going to be pretty good, actually. I think we kind of forget about that because it happened so early on. And then they also signed Thielbar, who's a lefty. I think that's how you say his last name anyway. And so he's a guy that can help, push Luke Little and Rob Zastryzny as the only other lefty available in the pen, especially now that Mark Leiter Jr., not a lefty, but a guy that faced lefties, is gone. And yeah, the free agent market is out there. And that's why I'm not really freaking out about this yet, is because there is a list of 25, 30 free agent relievers that the name of the 30th guy. And you remember him pitching, not just a random dude that you're like, oh yeah, I guess this guy's got an interesting fastball or a playable slider, whatever. These are all big name free agent relievers, and none of them have signed for the most part. There's been a few. Chris Martin just signed, but mostly none of them have signed. And that's because Tanner Scott, the best reliever on the market, the guy who's expected to get the biggest contract, hasn't yet signed. And usually those guys, especially in a group like relievers, will wait because that guy might reset the market. He might get a deal that's slightly bigger than we were expecting. And therefore, Jeff Hoffman, Carlos Estevez, those guys that fall right underneath him in the next tier, maybe Kirby Yates, someone like that, can get more than they otherwise thought they could based on last year's, free agent relief contract, terms. So that's what I think is happening. I think Tanner Scott's going to sign first. And then once he does, unless somebody else blinks, it's always one guy that goes out of his own way. Once he signs, I think a lot of more people will sign. But because there's so many of them available, I'm not really sweating it yet. And I do think the Cubs are going to go out and sign one of these free agent relievers for whom you are familiar and confident pitching in the 8th or 9th inning.
Now, I don't think they're going to go big with Tanner Scott.
No.
It just doesn't seem to be Jed's MO. But if it's not going to be Tanner Scott, who would you say if you were betting in Vegas? Who are a couple guys that you think are most intriguing if you're kind of in the mind of Jed and Carter right now?
Yeah, so I think that Kyle Finnegan is actually one name I think that was brought up earlier in the offseason, someone to keep in mind. He was non-tendered by the Nationals, but not in an insulting way. I mean, the Cubs non-tendered Kyle Schwarber, and he went on to hit 160 homers, right? That doesn't always mean what we internally think it means. I think he's a guy that might be on in their sights, so to speak. I think Kirby Yates is a guy Bruce Levine has brought up. I think that's a guy that the Cubs have liked a lot in the past, and maybe we'll check in on him again. Those are the two that really stand out to me. But I think Kenley Jansen is a possibility, and I don't think that that's necessarily a terrible option. And then I have seen stray, mentions of Carlos Estevez as a possibility as well. But truly, Andrew Chafin is another guy who, former Cub, the sheriff, the mustache, is a guy who's been connected. I don't know if that makes quite as much sense. He's not really a lefty. He's a full inning reliever, but he's a little past his peak. I don't know if they're exactly going to be counting on him the way they would some of these other guys on the list, but there are so many interesting names. David Robertson's another one, another former Cub that have pitched fine. And listen, it's 2025. Like, you could be a 37-year-old reliever and have a great season. We've seen guys do it. Like, it's not, if you're going to sign these guys, these are the sort of guys that get 1 or 2 year deals, $8 to $10 million a year. You don't have to worry about what he's going to be in 5 years, because he's not going to be on your team in 5 years. You're going to get him for 2025, maybe 2026 with an option. And, I know there's probably a lot of people listening and being like, the Cubs never spend on a bullpen. And I get that. It's absolutely true. When they signed Hector Neris last year to a not very big deal, that was a huge deviation for the Cubs front office. Like, that's not how they do it. But the reason I am so confident that they're going to go out and sign a guy is not only because it's been pretty clearly telegraphed by a lot of smarter baseball people than me, people that are even more connected. That said, I have heard personally that the Cubs are looking at this higher tier free agent relievers. That's not like groundbreaking news or anything, but I have heard that that's what they're interested in. So first and foremost, that just is, factually true. I'm reporting that, sharing that. But even more importantly, you can just think about this logically. The Cubs just traded a lot for Kyle Tucker. Okay. You do not trade for 1 year of a star player like Kyle Tucker if you don't intend to put the pieces around him to help him succeed. Now, for the most part, the Cubs have at least, defendable players in every position around the diamond, including now catcher. They've signed Carson Kelly. They have a full rotation. I still think they could add and hopefully do add an impact starter, but they have a full rotation of guys that you're like, yep, would like to see him pitch, would like to see him pitch, would like to see him pitch, would like to see him pitch. The one thing that they're lacking, and the easiest thing to add in general, but most specifically this offseason with so many available, is a back-end reliever. So you take all those things together, and it's impossible to imagine a world where they don't end up with one of these guys. They haven't gotten one yet. They've demonstrated with the trade for Eli Morgan that they are interested in buttressing the bullpen. They're going to go and do it.
Yeah. And the one thing you do look at is that, a lot of the guys in the farm system, they really seem like you got to see him kind of bubble up a little bit last year when you're talking about Porter Hodge, when you're talking about Luke Little, when you're talking about some of these guys that are coming up, and hopefully there's going to be more reinforcements on the way to kind of help bolster that bullpen. So, it's kind of a combination of, get somebody that's proven, a veteran. I think they tried that with Hector Neris. It didn't work out last year, but I mean, it wasn't the wrong idea to have a veteran presence. And if you talk to any of those guys, we've had Porter on the show, we've had other bullpen guys on the show. A lot of those guys, we may not have liked seeing Hector and the heart attack Hector and all that stuff, but he really kind of was well respected in the pen and taught those guys a lot, that goes into the day-to-day aspect of being a closer.
Yeah, no doubt. And to your point, I think this year with the rotation a little bit more filled out and, again, hopefully one more starter coming. I don't think that's a lock by any means, but if there is, you maybe have Javier Assad eating innings in bulk, not as a cleanup man, as a bulk multi-inning weapon that he can be out of the bullpen, and that would be huge. You might have Ben Brown, for a full season. Hopefully he's healthy and returns. You're going to have Nate Pearson, who was really good for the Cubs and can probably contribute more throughout the entire year. Porter Hodge was awesome, and we're going to get him for a full year. Now, here's the concern I always have, or the pushback I always have when people bring up Porter Hodge, is that his story narratively, not his background, not his pedigree as a prospect, but his big league emergence, mirrors Edward Alzolay almost exactly. Alzolay picked up as the closer the end of July 2023, was the presumptive closer going into the season. We thought, hey, he did it at the end of last year and he looks great. He's young. He's got the background. He can do it. And then it did not work. He was hurt, obviously, but it fell apart immediately. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen with Porter Hodge, but what I am saying is that is why you cannot count on a rookie being your closer from day one. If you have another guy that can either give him competition or just immediately push him into the eighth inning, you have an entirely different look, because you now have two guys with that sort of back end arsenal ready to go, and a little bit of a, optionality if you have one pitcher going back-to-back days, or if that reliever, that particular closer that you signed is 38-year-old Kirby Yates. Maybe he doesn't have 80 innings in him. Maybe he has 55. And so you need Porter Hodge to close some games. Like, that is just an entirely different makeup. And that's why I hope that the Cubs have learned their lesson, not just in like the way that we say like, oh, well, the bullpen was bad. Yeah. Okay. But like they are good at piecing it together. It just takes them too long. So the fewer pieces you have to figure out, the more success you can have early in the season, the easier it is to make sure that by the trade deadline, which is what these seasons have become, this is a 3-month season in baseball, because, the Cubs kind of threaded the needle last year and tried to, but most teams get to July 15th and then they decide if they're selling or buying. And then that's it. So if you're not winning those games early on, you're shooting yourself in the foot for the second half. The Cubs weren't really able to take advantage of their much lighter second half schedule last year because they weren't in a position in July to be, aggressively buying. The Isaac Paredes trade was, a little bit of a buy, a little bit of a sell, and I think a little bit of forward thinking for the Cubs. They didn't go out there and grab a bunch of talent and get a closer and get a reliever, get all the things they needed. Had they had 5 more wins by then, 3 more wins, they probably would have, and then they might have even gone on a better run in the second half.
And that's kind of what you try to tell people is people say, well, wins in April count the same as they do in August, but you can't be playing from behind. You know what I mean? You can't be falling behind 5, 6, 8, 10 games. Then all of a sudden you're in a whole bunch of mess where you need other teams to help you out. And again, I think about in 23, I mean, basically in it until the last weekend of the season, but just run out of gas. You can't keep pushing that hard all season, a 162 game season. You fall in a hole that deep, you're in trouble. And I was there at opening day in Texas last year in Arlington when Alzolay blew that game right there, first game. It's just like, that's not how you want to start the season, man. And I know those guys will tell you, well, you turn the page, you move on to the next day, but those got to hurt a little bit more. No one's ever going to tell you that, but they got to hurt as far as you had it and you let it go.
Yeah, I mean, and that game, I can't remember what else. So Justin Steele gets hurt, which was ridiculous. Yes. And Alzolay blew the save, but I think there was a couple other, did they have like a 9th inning homer in that one or something? There was some other there was like challenges. I remember that game being like everything on day one. Are you kidding me? Like our ace goes down, a blown save, it was like a bunch of stuff at once. And man, that was just like, okay, I guess we're back at it. Another year of madness.
But I just keep thinking too, just about the depth of bullpen and how important it is, because your starters just aren't going deep like they used to, and Jed talks about that a lot when he talks about like 2016, where you could count on, from 4 or 5 guys, X amount of innings, and you can't do that anymore, so you need the depth in the bullpen is really that aspect that's been hurting the last couple of years. And, hopefully this year Jed has it figured out. Now, Michael, I know you and I were talking a little bit before we jumped on here. How excited are you about Cubs Con? And is there anything that you think you're in particular looking forward to?
Oh, I mean, yeah, there's one thing, right? Sammy Sosa. I mean, come on. I am literally like crawling with excitement to cheer for Sammy Sosa and to hear everybody cheer for Sammy Sosa. He was, so I think I've talked about this with you before. Like the hook for me for Cubs was definitely like the 2003 team and run. That was when I was like, oh my God, I actually love the Cubs and I love baseball. And 2007, 2008 is when I was like, this is all I want to do for the rest of my life. But the 1998 season is like, I was 7.5. That was when I first remember being like, whoa, like what's going on here? And that was all Sammy. I mean, I probably could have named a few other players, but Sammy Sosa was everything to me when I was a kid. We did the hop, we did everything mimicking him, and to be so like denied his presence for so many years. I mean, this is going to be a huge moment for me. I'm sure a lot of Cubs fans feel the same way. Everyone has their own story. I know that, but like, yeah, Sammy's my guy. That's what I'm excited about Cubs Con.
Yeah, it's just a shame it's taken this long, but I am excited. And, the thing that really excites me is getting to see all you guys. It's such a fun time to see a lot of, we were talking, there's just no social media night. There's no get together. And last year with that snowstorm, I really kind of missed seeing you guys at Lizzie's. And so it's going to be fun and great to see everyone. It's like a family reunion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, listen, all like we were saying before, all the things aside, Sammy aside, the best part about Cubs Con is seeing all the people. Lizzie McNeil's after the first night. I mean, that's like just a legendary night every year. You never know who's going to walk in and be drinking with us and hanging out. And it's just so many of my best memories are there. That's where I met Brett Taylor of Bleacher Nation for the first time in person. It was at Cubs Con at Lizzie McNeil's. Like that's a lot of it. Right. And that was, back in the day when we would be like, oh, I don't know your first name, but I know your Twitter handle. And I know like that's how I know you. We've been talking for years and we didn't ever meet in person. So definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll be fun and it'll be great to see you. Michael, why don't you tell everyone where they can find your work, read your work, and follow you on the socials?
Sure. So you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Michael_Cerami. And you could read my stuff at bleachernation.com.
Michael, it's always a blast having you on here. You always make me feel a little bit calmer about things. And so I appreciate that and look forward to seeing you in about a little bit over a week, buddy.
Yeah. See you there.
This is episode number 2, season number 4. Is relief pitching on the way for the Cubs? Hey, do us a favor. Leave us a 5-star review. You can also email us, flythew670@gmail.com. And Crawly, you can watch us on the 670 The Score YouTube page. Cubs fans, have you ever wondered what it'd be like to be a big leaguer, wear the blue pinstripes, be coached by one of the all-time great Cubs? And in this segment, Crawly's talking to Carl Marquardt of Northside Fantasy Baseball Camp to talk about an amazing opportunity for Cub fans to live out their dreams.
Joining me now on the Fly the W podcast, I am happy to have on Tony Cahn from Waveland Events. Tony, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Hey, no problem. The reason I wanted to have you on is that you are with a group called Waveland Events, and you guys got something really exciting coming up January 26th to February 2nd in Tucson, Arizona, that I think our listeners would be interested in. It's called the Northside Baseball Fantasy Camp. Tony, can you do me a favor and tell me a little bit about the history of fantasy camps, because the Cubs play an important role in that?
They do. So Randy Hundley created the concept back in the early 80s. And that's carried on through many different applications today. There are comedy fantasy camps. There's football fantasy camps. So the model is used in many different ways. Randy ran that camp for, the Cubs all the way through the year 2020 was our last camp. And unfortunately, there hasn't been a camp since then due to several factors. It was during COVID. There was some operational issues on where camp was going to be held. And unfortunately, it just never came back together. So along with a business partner of mine, Carl Marquardt, who had attended, I believe, 20 fantasy camps. Myself, I'm a relative rookie with only having 8 under my belt. There's plenty of people that attended those camps that were there for over 30 years. And I've heard several of them laugh to say that, they all bought Randy a new house over all those years with just the fees to go to camp. So my partner Carl and I, we decided that there needed to be a camp. Cubs fans deserved a camp. We knew the value of it, not just in meeting the players and getting to spend that quality time, that almost one-on-one contact with the players. And so we felt like since the Randy Hundley Fantasy Camp didn't look like it was going to return, that we needed to make this happen.
So when was your first fantasy camp, Tony, your first Cubs fantasy camp?
My first camp was in 2013, and I'll give you a little bit of background. I had known about this camp since the late 80s. I was under the age limit then. There's a 30-year old limit, not a limit, but you got to be at least 30 years old to participate. And so, life gets in the way, things move, and I never was able to go. And I talked about it, and my wife said, you need to go do that now. And so I went with a friend of mine that I played baseball with for years and then went on to play softball with for years, with the idea that we were going to go and we were going to have a great time. The camp was going to end. We were going to take the gloves, hang them up in the garage, and the careers would be over. So I was at that camp for about a day and a half, and I called my wife and I said, I'm coming back. And she said, what? And I said, yeah, this is amazing. I said, not only are the players great, and it's great to play baseball, but the people here that are attending, they love each other. You can see it. It's obvious. It's an opportunity for these people to get back together once a year and have a great time. And they've developed such great relationships with these players.
Yeah, when I take a look at it, there was a book called Iron Man about Randy Hundley's biography. It was written with John St. Augustine, and just reading some of the stories just really made it made me want to go so badly to one of these camps. You talk about the camaraderie and the relationships that are built there, the friendships, and it just had to have been amazing to go the first time, and you get to sit in a locker room and you have a Cubs uniform with your name on it. I mean, I just couldn't even imagine what that feels like to put on the blue pinstripes for the first time.
The intimidation level that first day is through the roof. I mean, you're beside yourself. You're sitting, my first camp, 2 lockers away from me was Fergie Jenkins. Jose Cardinal was just a couple of lockers away on the other side. And you just look around and it's just a surreal atmosphere. But really quickly after you're there that first day and that awe sort of subsides, you realize that these are great people. They're not just great ball players. They weren't just great athletes, but they're also great people, and they're having such a great time interacting with the people that are attending the camp. And they've become great friends with people that have attended the camp year over year. And it's just such a great dynamic. If you'd have asked me years ago when I was a boy, if I would have had an experience like this to be around the players that I watched on a daily basis, I would have laughed.
Now, people, don't understand. You guys have teams, and each team has a manager who is a former Cubs player. Who are some of the managers that have kind of talked to you about baseball over the years?
Oh, I mean, all of them. Fergie Jenkins is such a great human being to be around. They'll all talk. I mean, they'll talk baseball. As long as you want to talk baseball, they'll talk baseball. Jose Cardinal has become a great friend, a great person, a great storyteller. And he's had so much history in the game as a player and as a coach. Guys like Willie Wilson, Pete Lecoq, Tim Stoddard, Mike Remlinger. I mean, I can go on. And these are guys that are all going to participate in our campus coaches.
Yeah, it's absolutely unbelievable. So if you go to wavelandevents.com, you'll get all the information you need on the Northside Baseball Fantasy Camp, but it's going to include a personalized, authentic Cubs home uniform, an alternate road jersey, belt socks, and fitted Cubs cap. So you're ready to go. You get a personalized clubhouse locker tag and pro swag. And so you guys play a 10-game season, and you mentioned some of the players. These are just phenomenal. You got Hall of Famers, you got Cubs Hall of Famers, you got legends. You mentioned Fergie, Jody Davis, and Lee Smith, and Sean Dunston and Bobby Dernier. I mean, those are all just top-notch guys. Anyone that's been to Cubs Cahn or been around the Cubs organization just knows what great human beings those are. Miguel Montero, I gave him his World Series ring on the field. I presented that. Michael Barrett, Ron Say, Jose Cardinal, Leon Durham, Ron Coomer, Coomdog, Willie Wilson, Ray Burris with his Snapdragon. You got Mike Remlinger, Tim Stoddard, former GM Ed Lynch, Pete Lecoq, Mickey Morandini, and then John Maley, who was the Cubs hitting coach in 2016 and is now assistant hitting coach for the Cubs, but probably one of the smartest coaches I've ever been around. So, I mean, just the amount of baseball knowledge that you can get from these guys is just unbelievable. It
is amazing. And they will help you along the way. They want you to be successful. There's no player out there that comes to this camp that has major league experience. Some guys played when they were in Little League. Some guys played through high school. Some guys played through college. But these are people who want to help you be successful when you get up there to swing a bat or when you get up there to throw a pitch. They're there to help you. And it's grueling to play 2 games a day for 5 days. That is a rough schedule. And I can tell you from experience, there's a lot of pulled muscles. There's a lot of sore arms, and we've seen some strange injuries over the years. We try and prevent them, right? We try and keep people as healthy as we can. We have a great staff of trainers that will be with us. We have great umpires that'll be with us. So the full experience is there. We want anyone who comes to this camp to spend a week as a major league player.
Yeah. And like you said, you have the trainers, you have the professional umpires. And so, the 2 teams that kind of move on at the end, they face each other in a championship game. And then you have campers versus coaches. And I just can't imagine what it's like to play against those guys. Is there anything that kind of sticks in your head over your years of fantasy camp where you just saw some player do something that you're like, okay, that's a major league player?
Well, I'll tell you what, in the over 30 years of Randy's camp, they had only lost twice to the group of campers. One of those years I was able to be a part of, and it was a great feeling, but they do not take it lightly. You're not going to get up there and not see a curveball that's going to buckle your knees. You are going to face their best. They don't want to lose. They want to win.
Yeah, they got that natural competitive streak there. But at the end, it's all about having a good time. You got daily buffet breakfasts at the Hilton, catered lunch at the ballpark, and then I'm sure the post-game happy hour. That's when the stories come out, right?
That's what it is. And, we tell people you get a few people there who just by nature, they want to take a shower and they want to get out of the clubhouse. Don't do that. We tell them, do not leave. That's where you're going to sit around and have a beer or two, and you're going to get those stories. That's where you're going to get the things that you will not be able to get anywhere else. And those are the stories that stay in the clubhouse. Those interactions are what continue to bring people back. You're able to get things you can't hear anywhere else.
I mean, I remember reading, I think it was in that Iron Man book that I read about the story about Leo the Lip DeRocher apologizing, I want to say, to Ron Santo, and really kind of having a moment between the two guys. And then I think the moment that a lot of Cubs fans nowadays, I don't know if they realize it, but when it was Ernie Banks at Fantasy Camp who asked Eddie Vedder to write a song that would end up becoming All the Way, which is every Cub fan knows. But all those things happened at a fantasy camp.
They did. And speaking of Ron Santo, we're lucky enough to have Jeff Santo and Ron Santo Jr. To come out and play with us. We'll also have Ernie's son, Joey Banks, will be out with us playing. Again, great people. They have their own great stories. They got to grow up in the clubhouse. They got to be around everyone that is participating in this camp as coaches. So it's another perspective that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, that is unbelievable. So if people do want to sign up, you go to wavelandevents.com, and there's different packages. There's a package for veterans, so people who have been to previous camps and they just bring their uniforms from prior camps, correct?
That's correct. Now we do, we're just a little over 2 weeks from the start of camp, but we do still have some availability, and we'll work hard to get you everything you need. If someone wants to participate, like you said, they can go to wavelandevents.com. They can contact us through there. They can go through our Facebook page, Northside Baseball Fantasy Camp. They can get to us there, and we'll respond, and we'll do our best to get whoever wants to participate in just a few weeks out on the field with everybody else.
And there's also a rookie package for people that are newcomers, and that's what's going to get you the uniform. And then I think it's cool that you also have a Legends Fantasy Camp package for people that maybe still want to just be part of the experience, but may not have the ability to play all the games, just because of age or maybe injury or those type of things, but want to still be part of just like the experience.
It is a great thing, and it's something that we have people coming to just absorb, like you said, the ambiance, to be around the friends that they made at camp, to be around the players that they've met for years at camp. And like you said, maybe, age has caught up a little bit. They still want to be a part, but they just don't feel like they can play. They're going to do everything we do except get on the field. They're going to have breakfast. They're going to have lunch. They're going to go out to after the ball games are over and go out for dinner and have a great time. And they still get to be a part of what's going on. And we wanted to make that a part of this camp.
Now, where is the actual games played at?
So we are playing this year in Tucson, Arizona, and it's the Keno Sports Complex. The facility used to be home, the spring training home of the White Sox and the Diamondbacks. I believe they left there sometime around 2010 and ended up in the greater Phoenix area. The county now owns that facility, and it has been not only maintained, but continuously upgraded. My partner and I were there in November, and they were in the process then of putting all new grass on the infields. They are continuously doing a great job to provide great fields for us to play on.
And it's just amazing, like you said, that it looks like it's ready for a major league team to come in right now. It looks, you have the 4 different fields, looks like a clover. So you have the multiple games going on. There's 3 additional fields plus the stadium. So yes. It truly feels like it is a major league complex. That's what it is.
It really is. And we've been in several, and this is a top-notch facility. People can come out and watch. We'll have spouses there. We'll have kids there. We'll have friends. It's a great atmosphere to sit and watch a ball game. when it's 72 degrees and we know what the weather's like back in Chicago.
Yeah. I'm sitting here and you're going to be at the Hilton Tucson East. If you've ever been there, they got the palm trees, they got the swimming pool and the bar and all that stuff. I mean, just what a great way to get away from the Chicago winter. I mean, right now, what are we at? 20 degrees outside. And you know, even just going to spring training, I've never been to fantasy camp, but just going to spring training, when you get to Arizona and you just see the sun for the first time in what feels like forever, just how great that feels. So, you know, I really encourage, it is my dream. And I was talking to you earlier, Tony, about this one day, is that when I retire, I don't want to party. I don't want anything. I just want my ticket to the, to go to the Waveland events, the Northside Fantasy Camp, because that is my dream. I can't do it right now just because of it. But it's, you know, all Cub fans, I think, kind of have like a bucket list of things that they want to do. And to me, if you're a Cub fan and you love baseball, this has got to be high on the list to be able to do something like this.
Absolutely. And like I said, I went the first year and I went every year after that. I couldn't not continue that on. It's such a great feeling. And to see people there having a great time, smiling, enjoying playing baseball. Some of them haven't done it in 30 or 40 years. And to get around the people that they watched growing up is just a great feeling.
Well, thank you so much for jumping on. And again, if anybody wants more information about this fantasy camp, they can go to wavelandevents.com. That's wavelandevents.com. We're going to have a link attached to my Twitter and Facebook page. So if you want some more information, you can go there. And I can say you guys have been super helpful as far as, you know, any questions I had, you were always right there to answer. So I think, you know, don't wait in life, man. If you got an opportunity and you have the chance to do so and the means to do so, I'd recommend it 100%.
Thank you. It will hold a spot for you whenever you're ready to come. We got a spot for you.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate you jumping on.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me. Have a good day.
All right, Crawly, that's a wrap of season 4, episode 2. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Fly the W. You can check us out on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram. Of course, we're on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. You can email us, flythew670gmail.com, and you can watch us, by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. So, Crawly, the next time we get together, it will be CubsCon week. CubsCon week. When will we know the order of events on Saturday? When will we know some more things? Because Friday, you know what, like, lay it out for everybody. What's going to happen on Friday?
So Friday is always the they call it the blue carpet entrance. They have this special blue carpet and the players kind of come through and you get autographs and pictures. And then after that is going to be opening ceremonies. Our guy Cole Wright will be doing the honors once again. That is where they will announce the 2025 class of the Cubs Hall of Fame. And yes, sir.
I have a stinking suspicion that Sammy Sosa is going to be part of that class.
I wouldn't disagree with you. And of course, then after that, you have the Ryan Dempster show, which is always a blast, off the mound with Ryan Dempster. We've had him on the pod talking about it numerous times. And then it kind of ends. They have a little bit at the hotel bar and lobby, a little Harry karaoke. So they have already kind of put out a bare bones schedule of events that we'll dive deeper into on Monday. And hopefully we'll have some more players' names for you. But yeah, next week is CubsCons. I'm excited. I'm going to be down there Thursday night, getting started early. I will tell you that my bags will be packed this weekend and we will have all the information you need to make it a successful CubsCon. If you haven't been in a while and you want to go back to see Sammy, or even if you've been going for years, we'll try to give you some tips, some advice, anything that you need to help make this a great CubsCon for you. I'm excited. It's about time. Go Cubs. Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!